Now, what would you say if I told you that you are the image of God? Yeah. You. Every single one of us, and every person we meet, we are the image of God. We are the product of God's imagination. Holy imagination, if you will. Now, the month of June for us in New Thought, and Unity specifically, focuses on the power of imagination. And in the wider world, it is also known as Pride Month for our LGBTQIA community and Ohana. And here on the last Sunday of June, here at Unity Church of Hawaii, we also celebrate Aloha Sunday. For me, this was a jackpot of a day to get to speak. When Reverend Tim asked me if I'd like to give the talk for today, I was super excited, and I knew exactly what I wanted to talk about. I knew that this trifecta of a day was perfect to talk about holy imagination, and more specifically, human beings as a product of God's imagination. The IMAGO DEI, the image of God. So I ask again, what if I told you we are a product of God's imagination? Amen. So with this thought, I want us to think about, God thought that human beings would be a good idea. Now, I know we can argue the merits of that a little bit later, but today it's a good idea. Most of the time, it's a good idea. And so we know, and the thing about it is that God didn't just say, let's make humans. He said, let's make human beings in our image and likeness. Now, a bunch of stuff happens, and things get messy, and we have this feeling of separation, an appearance of separation. But even after a reset, if some of you are familiar with the flood story from the Christian Bible with Noah, and it's also in other folklore as well. And so even with the reset, humans are still in the picture. Humans are still an important part of the story. And we are here because we are a God idea. God spoke us into being in their image, in their likeness. Okay, sermon's done. All right. Now, of course, there's more to it than that. And this is a talk of empowerment. It's a reminder of, as I said earlier, who we are and whose we are. And so with this idea, I want to explore a few things. First, what is God's image? Second, what does it mean to be made in God's image? And then finally, how do we live in, through, and as God's image? So first, what is God's image? Now, let's start at the beginning. I'm going to use the Hebrew Bible, which is the first 5 books that we know in our Christian scriptures. And there we find the creation story in Genesis 1. Now, I'm going to skip ahead a little bit, and then I'll back up. So in Genesis 1, 26 and 27, it says, God said, let us make humankind in our image, in our likeness, so that they may rule over the fish in the sea and the birds in the sky, over the livestock and all the wild animals, and over all the creatures that move on the ground. So God created humankind in their own image. In the image of God they were created. Male and female they were created. Now, first I want to establish an idea that I'll use throughout this talk. God is gender fluid. God is the original they, them. Amen. Now, I'll actually argue a little bit later that God is far beyond a binary sexuality or gender identity, and that's a human thing. Trying to understand God from our human eyes and from our reasoning, which some scholars say is one of the presentations of the IMAGO DEI, our ability to reason. Now, another thing to know, that sometimes this verse, he created them, male and female, is used in some circles as what we call a clobber verse, to hurt or to inflict separation on our non-binary and our transgender siblings. Because it says male and female, they were created. So binary, two genders, period. No, God's not that small, right? And so it's a spectrum, a continuum, just like everything else in this creation story. It's wholly imagination. So, what is God's image? Well, let's go back a little bit further back in Genesis 1. And it says, God said, "Let the water under the sky be gathered to one place, and let dry ground appear." And it was so. God called the dry ground land, and the gathered water he called seas. And God saw that it was all good. And God said, "Let there be light in the vault of the sky to separate the day from the night, and let them serve as signs to mark sacred times and days and years. And let the lights be in the vault of the sky to give light on the earth." And it was so. God made two great lights, the greater light to govern the day, and the lesser light to govern the night. He also made the stars. God set them in the vault of the sky to give light on the earth, to govern the day and the night, and to separate light from darkness. And God saw that it was good. And there was evening, and there was morning, the fourth day. Now, as we see in these verses, we apparently have two more sets of binary. We have land, and then we have sea. And we have day with a great light, and then we have night with a lesser light. Then, in what almost seems like an afterthought, we have stars. But the thing about God and their creation is all things that we are implied when we read between the lines and the apparent afterthought of the stars. So, for example, we have dry land and we have the seas. But for those of us that live near water and have grown up around water, we know that it's not simply land, sea. There's marshes, there's sea caves, there's bogs. There are different types of land that flow and become into the sea. And then we also know that sea is not the only water that we have. We have rivers, we have streams, we have rain. And so the same is true whenever we think about the day and the night, because we have morning, we have twilight, we have sunrise, we have sunset, we have the night, and then in the night, we have moon phases. So at times it is full and bright, and at times it is dark and new. And so when we think of it this way, we can more easily begin to understand that it goes to reason that sex or gender must be more than male or female. So one way we identify God's image when it comes to the physical presentation of people is that God's image is so expansive, it requires all of these unique expressions of size, shape, ability, gender, sexuality, etc. And it also means that God's image is more than skin deep. It's our souls. My soul, your soul, your soul, your soul. That is God. You are God. You are the IMAGO DEI. So that brings me to my second question. What does it mean to be created in God's image? So our soul is the very stuff of God. So therefore, we are imagination. So for us in Unity, we can best understand this through a saying by the French philosopher Pierre Teilhard de Chardin. We are not humans having a spiritual experience. We are spiritual beings having a human experience. That is our godness, our IMAGO DEI. And I also like the way that therapist and interfaith minister and mindfulness teacher Nancy Collier, whom our inspirational reading came from, puts it. So what gets in the way of our knowing who we really are? What untethers us from our truly infinite and spiritual nature? Now, the long answer is complex and multi-layered, but since this is a blog post, since this is a sermon, I'll go with the short answer. The number one thing that makes us forget our true nature as spiritual beings is thought, or more specifically, our fascination with our thoughts. Okay, now Unity people just went, because in Unity we know that our thoughts create our reality, but remember that our thoughts connected with our hearts and with our actions create our reality. Amen. So now I'll dive into that a little bit deeper in the last question. So we'll hold that for a second. But we have to remember that our thoughts instead are actually God's shared imagination. So when we go into the silence, we go into meditation, into our heart space, there we access these God ideas. Our imagination is activated, and we get creative on how we express, how we show up, what our IMAGO DEI looks like, feels like, sounds like. And so we bring those God thoughts into our mind, and we remember that God's imagination breathed us. And therefore, we breathe God. And so now we have arrived at that third question that I asked. How do we live in, as, and through this IMAGO Dei. So the first way I would like to address this thought is through reformer and theologian John Wesley. And this was actually highlighted in a book by transgender theologian Austin Hartke in his book Transforming: The Bible and Lives of Transgender Christians. So Wesley uses a breath image and says that we breathe in the compassion, the generosity, and the love of God. And then we exhale the same to others. We breathe in the compassion, the generosity, and the love of God, and then we exhale the same onto others. So I hope my excitement of getting to preach on the last Sunday of Pride Month and Aloha Sunday is becoming more apparent. This is similar to the Hawaiian spirituality concept of the ha, the breath. But breath is more than just bringing life and energy or mana into our own bodies. It is the sharing of that ha, where our spirit, our godness lays and is expressed. My God sees the God in you. My IMAGO Dei recognizes the IMAGO Dei of you. Austin also points out that it's all about how we orient ourselves toward each other and toward creation. We can't be in right relationship with each other if we can't see each other. But I can't see you if I can't see me. So, step 2 is to share the ha, to build up, to encourage each other's mana. But step 1 is to recognize the IMAGO Dei. The IMAGO Dei in yourself, and then the IMAGO Dei in your sibling. You are the face of God. I hold you in my heart. You are a part of me. You are the face of God. You are the face of love. I hold you in my heart. You are my family. You are the face of God. The point of pride is to celebrate the many faces of God, especially the ones that are ignored, oppressed, or even killed for being their IMAGO Dei. The point of life is to live fully as the IMAGO Dei you are, and in doing so, empower all within your sphere of influence to do the same. So live in, as, and through the IMAGO Dei. Step 1, recognize that IMAGO Dei first in yourself and then in each person your eyes meet. Step 2, live authentically from your holy imagination. Be the living, breathing love, compassion, joy, mercy, grace, and kindness of God. First to yourself, and then to every person that you meet. Remember, the IMAGO Dei is an expansive life. It is our very breath, our imagination that sees this world as a place for each soul to live out, into, and through their divinity. May you see the IMAGO Dei. May you be the IMAGO Dei. And may you magnify the IMAGO Dei all around you.
Amen.
And so I invite us to take that idea. I want you to bring yourself into your mind's eye. Whether it is as you appeared in the mirror this morning, or whether it is a younger self that you need to apologize and ask forgiveness from. You are the image of God. You are the only one that can express your image of God. So in this next moment of silence, give yourself that permission to recognize, to know, and to be the IMAGO Dei that you are.